This is the story of a boy who flat out tells us that this is his dream. It is not an illusion that comes from his imagination, but something more like a review of the past day. What we see is the battle he had yesterday, and this is him. He is fighting a giant snake, which he mocks by telling it slow. However, negligence has always been a problem. The snake crawls towards him and his armor starts to break, which does not make him very happy. He comments that combat games come first when he gets angry, but what he enjoys most is swordsmanship, with magic to be exact. But after defeating the giant snake, he falls down. He was not aware of this. He was still telling his story, but he saw a white-haired woman approaching, a rather beautiful woman. Then he feels very sleepy, and we see him lying on a bed. He feels his body very weak and associates it with the intense battle he had. The woman approaches him and kisses his forehead. The scent she gives off is of flowers. Although he tried to control himself, he couldn't stand it, so he took the woman's face to kiss her. But when he was about to do it, surprise, he was a baby. He had reincarnated and that woman was his mother. In fact, it's not even the first time he has reincarnated. It's something very common for him. His name is now Errol. But let's continue with the subject of reincarnations. He is something different to other people. He is able to count how many times he has reincarnated throughout his existence. This time, it's the 101st time that he is a baby. It's been this guy in his first life. He was a Korean born in Joseon Hell. He was an ordinary young man who was shaking day by day with worries about employment. He can say that he has never had a happy life because after finishing his first life, he was very surprised when he reincarnated the first time. He woke up as a foreign baby. After that, he reincarnated again and again. The times he reincarnated, it was never in the same world. Each time he reincarnated in a different world, he can boast of having experienced all kinds of life. Thanks to that, he is completely adapted to reincarnate. That said, Aral will take a look at his new life. By the style of the furniture and by how the room looks, it is in medieval times. If seen from the point of view of a reincarnation expert, then it is not the Middle Ages of Earth, then it is a fantasy world. He considers that the world of science fiction was the easiest place to live. It was impeccable and advanced in many aspects, however. He is not in a slum now, analyzing the environment. He is in a place where he can hire a lady-in-waiting. Because of this, he suspects that he is in an upper-class family of the fantasy world. Aral tries to understand her language to a certain extent, but there are things he can feel before he interprets. By the way she holds him and the warm look she gives him, everything indicates that his mother in that life loves him very much. He has known many mothers in other lives throughout his reincarnations, but maternal love was not something natural. It is bitter, but there were times when he was abandoned at birth, and there were times when he was used as a means to earn money, but now it is different. He has a good feeling. His mother's name is Levana. Moments later, thanks to what this girl, whose name is China, says, Aral knows that he is the prince. But his mother's face is not very pleasant, as she believes that other people will not recognize Errol as a prince. Levana tells China that since they are the only ones in that room, she mentions that Errol is the prince because he has the blood of the king, but in reality, everything indicates that they are far from having a glorious life, since there is also Levana's humble blood in Errol's body. She feels guilt and believes that Errol will blame her when he grows up, as she believes that because of her, Errol will not have the right to inherit the throne. So she apologizes to him, but Errol comforts her as best he can. Levana suspects that he understands her, but China tells her that this is impossible. Errol asks his mother not to be sad, for he doesn't care, even though he has no right to be the successor. The powerful nobles pay no attention to him, and not even the royal family cares about him. It is the life of a prince indifferent to his surroundings. He considers this life a perfect place to live easily. The blood of the king and royalty combined with who used to be a servant flows in Errol's body. He considers it a lottery combination, a life where he can spend his time away from power struggles. As long as royal blood flows through his veins, he is guaranteed at the very least the standard of living, or at least that is what little baby Errol dreams of. Levana watched happily as her baby smiled innocently. She wishes she had the power to protect his smile. Errol understands the reason for her concern. What is a prince without heritage in a world full of aristocrats, whose lineage and class are the gospel? He is nothing more than a scapegoat. No inheritance means no future, and no one will follow him, because he has no power, nothing to protect him. In the end, all that awaits him is death. But Errol thinks that his mother has nothing to worry about, since his son was a professional in his past lives and also a bald man. 3 months later, Levana watched Errol sleep, but wished she had the king's hair. Then China arrives to inform her that the carriage is ready. Levana says goodbye to Errol. After she leaves, he wakes up as he was only pretending to be asleep, but he realizes that he makes a lot of noise, and at that rate, a nanny will come. Because he is a baby, everyone's eyes are on him. Being this charming is hard work, but he won't have time alone again. So if he hurries, it's essential for his future. Since he was born into the royal family as a prince, he must enjoy it heartily, to hang out and eat comfortably. The most important thing he needs is power, so he starts to control the mana. No matter what world he is in, strength is the key. As long as he is strong, nothing will go against him. He knows this well. He did not live 100 lives in vain, even though he knows the method to build strength. Being a baby limits him to some extent. Chaotic creation Qigong. This is the training method he created in his 30th reincarnation. It is a divine technique that allows him to train his internal ki and his original Kai at the same time. He can even practice with a baby body, and people would never suspect that he is training. After mastering that, when he reaches 10 years old, he believes he should have the same internal ki value of 60 years old. And when he reaches 20 years old, he should have a ki value of 120 years old. After the initial stages is easier because once he generates enough Shivai, he can practice even in the arms of the nanny. That is why he decides to speed things up a bit. He slowly moves the accumulated Kai to the brain and frontal lobe using electrical stimulation on the nerves and energy of the body. In this way, the Kai expands in his body and the energy reaches the maximum points. Suddenly, Chinna enters the room because of the noise, but by the time she enters, RL was already pretending to be asleep. She arrived in 5 seconds. Chinna considers it's time to change nappies, but Errol doesn't want to be touched as a light touch can dissipate all the accumulated energy. Fortunately, Chinna changes her mind just now. Errol is a human thermal power plant. He even feels like he's burning. Fever is not a very good thing for babies, so he doesn't know how long he can endure it. But he'd rather die than live his life as a useless person. Bro, take it easy. You're still a baby. Errol decides to accelerate the level of Kai manipulation using the technique of Qigong creation origin, this to have a comfortable life. But again, he was making too much noise and Chinna manages to hear him. Chinna enters back to see Errol and only finds him sweating profusely, so she plans to make him take a refreshing herbal bath. By the time Chinna leaves the room, Errol is up again, finally achieved prefrontal lobe hyper-evolution. Later, Chinna returns and notices that Errol is very happy. His hands are moving a lot and he seems to be in very good condition. Errol is sure that Chinna has no affinity with mana, as he is using his awakened frontal lobe Kai sensor to detect and absorb mana in the atmosphere. In other words, he's automatically getting stronger just by eating, sleeping, and wandering around. There is no way he is not happy. Right now, he must have accumulated enough internal ki for 3 years, and when he reaches 10, the number of people who can kill him in the whole world will be less than 10. Chinna doesn't understand Errol's attitudes, but she loves it when he smiles. Errol is longing for the day when he can live vaguely as a prince. It's been 5 months since Errol was born, thanks to the effect of the origin technique of Qigong creation. In terms of physical abilities and internal ki, he is growing much faster than children of his age. He is also accumulating internal Kai every day. Even though he is crawling on the floor right now, when he has enough Phi, he might even levitate. Moments later, Lavanna arrives and tells Errol that she brought him something, a rattle. He reacts not very well, which makes Lavanna disappointed. But he recognizes his mistake and changes his act, the appropriate reaction for a child receiving a rattle. Lavanna tells Errol that she will play with him often. She wonders who he came out as charming. Errol doesn't know what she means by that. He clearly came out to his mother. Being adorable is a luxury only enjoyed in childhood, so he will be sure to treasure that moment. Next, Errol's expression changes. He is really hungry now. Chinna quickly realizes Errol expected nothing less from her. While feeding Errol, Lavanna mentions that she hasn't seen Anna anywhere. Chinna replies that that girl had quit the day before, a pity, because Lavanna knew she was a bright and intelligent girl, but the budget for maintaining the palace was very low, so it was hard to pay her. Errol realizes that he feels he already overheard that conversation between maids the other day. We see a flashback where Errol hears how they were talking about having to decrease the amount of food on Lavanna's table, although they have to take nutrition into account. But they can't do much when the budget is so low. Errol thought it was just complaints from the maids. Lavanna mentions that they are lucky they are not starving. Errol thinks that his mother is still a royal concubine even if she gave birth to the prince. The fact that she was born as a servant is the problem. Chinna mentions that the biggest problem is the winter, as you can't plant anything in the winter. Errol is alert, as he thought he wouldn't freeze to death because he is supposed to be a prince. Lavanna has tried to see the king, but hasn't been able to, as he's a busy person. That's why Lavanna goes out so much, but even she couldn't see him once. Errol thinks this is very ruthless and unacceptable. He suspects that there are forces keeping his mother under control and isolating her. Perhaps it is the close attendants or other concubines. Errol starts to cry. He is sorry for his mother. Even if he is just a baby, he wants to help her. Even though right now he is just good, acting cute and turning around, but he is determined to help her no matter what. At night, Errol thinks about the serious problem of getting through the winter. They need a lot of money to deal with the food problem first, but they will also need more firewood for the winter, so he starts to think of a way to help, until he finally comes up with something. He notices that the fireplace has a lot of coal. There are jewels made of diamonds. His mother also has one in the jewelry, and that place is valuable. Problem solved. He already knows what he has to do, so he tries to get out of the cot, but he can't. He still has a weak body. He must use his head and think of a way to get out of there. With the amount of mana he has, he's enough to levitate out. Usually, coal doesn't have many uses, but right now it is a valuable resource. Think of making a diamond out of coal. He's a genius. But this is no time to be flattering himself. He has to take that opportunity to create a diamond quickly. While everyone's asleep, he must concentrate, combine thermal energy with mana to put pressure on the coal using as much mana as he can. Even though Arel can stock up on mana again, he doesn't want to let the energy he has gathered go to waste. So he does his best to compress it. The internal pressure of that thing is pretty hard to increase, but he must resist and not let the energy get out. His mother would go crazy if she saw this. Arel just wants to ease Levana's worries and make her smile. Moments later, an explosion occurs, but fortunately, Arel had gotten it. A diamond and a pretty nice one at that. Now he must think of a good way to give her that handmade, homemade diamond in the most natural way possible. The next morning, China says good morning to Arel, but is surprised to see him out of the cot. She has no idea how the baby has managed to escape from the cot. China also notices the ash on Arel's face, then notices that the cooker is a mess, as is the carpet. Moments later, she notices a crack in the floor, so now she won't let Arel touch the floor. Arel thinks there is nothing to worry about. Moments later, China notices that Arel has something in his mouth after taking it out. It is the diamond. She is very surprised and asks Arel where he got it from. She thinks from the floor. She had taken care of the treasury and everything in that place, so there should be nothing missing there. It is an unlisted diamond, but as it looked like Arel was trying to give it to her, she thanks him. Arel is sure Levana will like it too. After that, a parade of wagons made an appearance in the palace. The empty kitchen storeroom was now restocked with food and firewood, which eased the worries of the people. All this is clearly because the price for trading the diamond that Arel made was so high. Levana asks Sheena if it was right to do so, since the gem could have an owner, but she tells her that there's nothing to worry about, since the castle they are in went almost 100 years without an owner until Levana took possession of it. Besides, that diamond was made by Arel. Levana believes that this is God favoring the prince in some way, for which she is quite grateful. Arel cannot wait to grow up. When that day comes, there will be no more hardship for his mother. Arel will show them and the king his great existence. The bonfire burned non-stop that winter. The palace finances were stable and changes were noticeable everywhere. There was so much food that Levana thought it was too much for her alone, but Sheena tells her not to worry about it. As for Anna, the servant who had to resign, she was reinstated, and with this, the treatment of the servants was improved. But the biggest change Arel noticed was that his mother's face no longer looked grim. It was just as he expected. She is beautiful when she smiles. That winter was the coldest he had ever experienced, but ironically, it was warmer than any other day in his life. A year later, Sheena and Levana are trying on new clothes for Arel. After trying on several outfits, Arel wonders what's going on as they suddenly make a fuss about his outfit. Arel decides he needs to rest so he can make a respectful request befitting his role as prince. He gets down on the floor and cries to be put to sleep. Now he can finally rest. We then find out that the reason for the change of attire is because Arel will be officially recognized as an official member of the royal family. Levana mentions that Arel may only be a prince in name only, but the blood of the royal family runs through his veins, so she hopes the king won't skip this birthday. China mentions that she doesn't think the majesty will overlook this. He is just waiting for the right moment. Yes, this is Arel's birthday. This may not be a banquet to welcome everyone, but the announcement of Arel inheriting the royal blood will be made officially, so Levana is glad that the rules of Renesia's royal family also apply to Arel. He realizes that it is for this reason that Levana looked more excited than usual. If it is a banquet, the nobles and other members of the royal family will be there. Arel thinks about whether he will finally meet the king later on. They prepare for the banquet. There are many guests, food and people setting the atmosphere musically. It is very extravagant. There must be a lot of money involved. This is new for Arel and is also the first time he sees so many people, at least in this life. Arel notices some strange looks. There were already people babbling about him and his mother, but he doesn't care. What interests him is to see the king of Renesia, Thiril Renesia, his father. He wants to see how important he is for not having shown himself a single day since Arel was born. That's not all. That guy doesn't care how Arel lives at all. Arel wants to take that opportunity to affirm his existence with the king. It was their appearance that marked the beginning of the banquet, the royal family of Renesia. That person over there is the queen, then the children next to him. They are Arel's half-siblings. He notices that this guy stands out, so he suspects it's the oldest son, and a girl who seems to have 8th grade syndrome along with her sisters. Arel needs to investigate each of them. But the first thing he notices is that this group of people didn't even say hello to his mother, which bothers him. Levana thinks Arel's reaction was because of all the noise that was going on. Even though it is Levana who is having the most complicated situation, she still tries to make Arel laugh. The people were talking about how the place changed atmosphere just when the queen arrived. Then Arel notices an expression on his mother, and it was because the king had made an appearance. Arel, seeing him, immediately realizes the energy that the king releases. The king's presence makes all the nobles quiet in an instant. The pressure coming from him is no small thing. If Arel's intuition is correct, he must at least be at the level of master at the top. Next, he doesn't know if the king is looking at him or his mother. There is something that Errol has not achieved after hundreds of reincarnations, and that is to find out what someone else is thinking. The banquet began with gifts and congratulations from the lower-class nobles. They would show themselves before Errol and show their respects. There is one thing that the high-ranking nobles have in common, and that is the way they shamelessly underestimate him and his mother, and that makes Errol very angry. He can't stand that they continue to belittle him and his mother. Errol thinks about breaking their eardrums with his crying. Lavanna tells Errol to hold on a little longer. There he realizes that if he does what he was thinking of doing a few moments ago, the only one who would suffer would be his mother. Errol thinks better of things. Everyone is for pretending, so it shouldn't matter what the others say, and moments later, a girl grabs him by the cheekbone. They must be the other concubines and their daughters. Errol knows that this girl is at an age where she knows nothing of power, so he has to put up with it. This group of girls congratulate Errol on his birthday. When Lavanna was about to thank them, these girls turn around and leave. The whole banquet was like this. It was a cruel moment for him and his mother. Moments later, Lavanna is approached by the queen, whose name is Elia. Errol does not like her arrogant son's expression at all, but it is just as he expected. The queen is on a completely different level. Elia tells Lavanna that Errol is just like her, and that she thinks he is cute. Errol thinks her tone and expression are friendly, but is she really nice? If she had the slightest interest in him or his mother, the concubines of the castle would not have behaved in such a disrespectful way. There was no firewood, so the guards were used as laborers, and the maids had to use their scraps of clothing to make Errol's clothes. Elia leaves, and seconds later, finally King Thirol approaches, who asks Lavanna if nothing out of the ordinary has happened and if she has got used to living in the castle of concubines. Lavanna replies that everything has been fine, but we all know that in reality everything was wrong. Errol inside himself demands money from his father. Seeing Errol like this, Thirol asks to hold him. He noticed that Errol doesn't cry when other children would have cried at the sight of him. If that is the case, Errol decides to smile for him. As a man whose heart does not melt at a baby's smile should not be called a father, Thirol smiles and says that Errol is quite interesting. Errol wants to continue with his performance. Thirol puts him down on the floor. Lavanna tells him that he cannot walk yet because he is only 1 year old. While everyone was watching, Errol manages to stand up in front of his father and starts to take his first steps. Errol wants to take the limelight that day. After all, it's his birthday. Lavanna was very happy, while Thirol suspects that Errol wanted to show him that, and that's right. Errol wants to show the king that he is different from the other children, and there are many people watching, so it's the perfect moment to do it. I don't know what Errol was trying to do, but he ends up holding the tablecloth very tight and all the glasses and plates fall on the floor. Lavanna and Shina's expression is worried, but it's okay because Errol has a plan. As they were all watching the 1-year-old prince walk for the first time, no one was able to notice his master plan, his bad intentions. Even though everything falls to the ground, everything goes according to his plan. After this, his father takes him. Errol thinks to himself he should cry even more. Thirol carries him to make sure Errol is not hurt, but he is just covered with wine all over. So even though he's not hurt, it is necessary to change his clothes. Shina offers to change his clothes. Thirol decides to do it himself, but soon after he realizes that Errol's underwear was dirty. Shina is surprised as he was clean in the morning. Everyone was shocked to see the prince's undergarments. They shouldn't look like that, so they suspect he must have been living humbly. Hearing everyone muttering, Thirol intervenes to ask them to be quiet, then wonders what kind of life the prince has been living. Bingo. Just what Errol wanted. Let's go to a flashback in the morning when the nanny was getting his change of clothes ready before leaving. Errol used his energy to raise his body heat and ruin his clothes. The fabric was so fragile he could almost tear it with his bare hands. Even the lint came out after rubbing it a little. Under all those fancy clothes was this uncomfortable truth. Now it will seem that all those fancy clothes were nothing more than a show for his birthday. Thirol asks Lavanna for explanations, as that is something that is not in the standards of the royal family. But Thirol realizes that he shouldn't be asking Lavanna that, so he goes to this guy called Jennifer and asks him about the budget for each palace. The king was supposed to have said that the money was to be distributed fairly, so Jennifer tells him that the budget was used as Thirol ordered, but that doesn't seem fair to him. So he immediately demands the budget information. Errol was thinking that even though it was his birthday, the meeting turned into an audience. This is the perfect opportunity for Errol to find out what kind of person his father is. Lavanna takes the blame for what is happening. Seeing his mother and Shina's expressions, Errol thinks about them, but apologizes because they will have to put up with it a little longer as he is doing this for their sake. The people at the meeting were open-mouthed and the musical setting had stopped. Moments later, they bring Thirol the budget information. After looking at it, he gets angry and lights them on fire because he finds it totally ridiculous. Errol knows from the way the king was upset, it means he had no idea about the current situation, so he thinks about who could have been responsible. Thirol turns to Elia and asks her if she knew what was going on. She asks him what was written in those papers. He replies that the budget was not distributed fairly and there were leaks to the wrong palace. Elia is surprised. Thyril asks her again if she had no idea about this, as Elia is supposed to be the one in charge of everything related to the concubines. Elia's son intervenes to talk to Thyril. He tells Thyril that whole situation was done by someone malicious. He assures Elia wouldn't be able to do that. Thyril gets upset because in that case, she's not responsible because she didn't do it. Due to the lousy budget management, Errol was underdressed and starving. Due to the king's charisma, Errol is unable to see the aura of malice in Elia. Thyril tells Elia that this situation is disappointing. Lavanna then intervenes to tell him that none of this is Elia's fault. She takes the blame for everything. But Thyril does not know what she is referring to, as she gave birth to one of his children. That makes her a member of the royal family. He tells her that she should be proud of herself for being a member of the family, this while holding her by the arm and staring at her, which causes anger in Elia. Thyril orders to find the perpetrator and hold him responsible. He hopes that such a situation will not happen again. Elia nods and says that she will make sure not to give him any more trouble. Thyril clarifies that if such a situation happens again, he will hold the queen responsible for it. Elia angrily says that she will find the perpetrator and make him pay for his actions, while at the same time she thinks that it is all the fault of those useless people. So she's responsible for this in a way. Elia approaches Lavanna to apologize. Errol thought she was ridiculous, as no one will believe that lousy performance. That's what he thought, because Lavanna tells Elia that she doesn't need to apologize. Errol wanted his mother to at least hit that crazy woman. Clearly there is no way Elia didn't know about this. Just look at her face, she is definitely involved. There is no sincerity in her eyes. She is just like the other concubines. Errol wonders how many people are involved in all this. After this happened, the feast ended and the budget problems were solved immediately. Sooner rather than later, the criminal mind was caught. The person who had done the embezzlement was from an aristocratic family, whose punishment was death penalty. Later, the maids talk about what happened. The leader confessed after the investigation, but they wonder what he did with so much money. Anna is happy that everything has been solved. Meanwhile, Errol, just like us, is sure that Elia is not innocent. However, they already have everything covered. Everything after the execution was quite calm. It is just as he expected. She is not an easy opponent to beat, but once Errol grows up, he will take care of making her dust. But for now, what matters is the food, so Chena goes immediately to feed him. For the moment, Errol decides that he will play and eat like a baby and only worry about growing. He finds it very fun to eat and have fun. After eating, he plans to take a nap, but he can't sleep because there is too much noise. When he looks out of the window, Errol notices that there is a carriage outside. It is his mother's, but the soldiers are escorting someone. Errol hears people coming. One of the people coming is his mother, the other is an adult, and the last one has light steps. Errol must wake up Chena, but if he shouts, they will see him. So he goes to her to wake her up. At the right moment, when his mother opens the door, she is surprised, since Chena is found holding Errol. As for the woman accompanying Lavanna, her name is Fenelia. Chena apologizes to her because she hasn't made proper preparations, but she says it's all right since she didn't inform that she was coming. Lavanna mentions that had she given notice, they would have prepared something for her. But Fenelia would like no one else to know. Moments later, she wants to talk to Lavanna alone. Errol wonders what they want to talk about, so out of the blue, as they talk, Lavanna starts coughing. Fenelia apologizes. It's something she wanted to do since Errol's birthday. She is Fenelia Kenchester in the past, when the war on the continent was still going on. An established family made a great merit. There was not a single family in the country who did not know the Kenchesters, however. That glory was in the past. After that, no boy was born with military talent, so the family went into decline. Fenelia apologizes that the embezzlement was to pay off their debt. She could not decline Elia's offer, that she gives the money back to Lavanna. Even though she knows it will not fix anything, she makes it clear that she is not there asking for Lavanna's forgiveness, but wants her only to be angry with her. She does this because she wants to protect her daughter from the king's wrath. Lavanna accepts the apology but will not take the money. She mentions that she does not think badly of Fenelia. She makes it clear that she should not feel sorry for her, but Lavanna does not feel sorry for her. Instead, she tells Fenelia that she does not want there to be any hostility between them, so she gives her back the money and tells Fenelia to take it as a symbol of intimacy between them. Moments later, Lavanna tells Fenelia that she will tell her why they have a problem with the budget, as she knows the person well. Lavanna used to be Queen Elia's assistant. Errol is surprised to learn this. It explains why they have problems with the queen. Errol starts to pout, but his mood changes drastically. Moments later, Chena approaches this girl. She is Princess Kania. As for Errol, he must concentrate more. As he controls the sky, he can hear all the conversations beyond the room, so he keeps listening to the conversation between Lavanna and Fenelia. She mentions that because of everything that had happened, she could do nothing but accept Elia's contempt, but Lavanna is sure it's different now because she has Errol, so she doesn't care who it's about. She won't let him do as he pleases. Lavanna mentions that she thought being hated by Elia was inevitable, but not anymore because with Errol, things will be different still. Lavanna wants to be closer to Fenelia. This is not something of just goodwill. She is ready to put an end to this, so Fenelia accepts because one day when they are cornered, they will both need someone to trust. Errol thinks about how his mother really knew everything, the invisible feud between the queen and the royal family against Errol and his mother. Errol wonders who will be in danger from now on. Errol knows he must be ready for all the trouble that awaits them. While thinking about this, he notices Kania approaching him, but wait, is this panel an attack on Titan reference? Kania climbs in and then enters the cot to caress Errol. He wonders why she does that, as he is not a toy. Errol wants Sheena to help him, but she just comes over to tell Kania that indeed Prince Errol is super cute. She then tells Kania to come visit Errol more often. While he just wants someone to save him, time passes and Errol is now 30 months old. In only half a year, he will be 3 years old. He reflects that life is but a fleeting moment and gets angry that there are words he cannot pronounce well because of his baby tongue. It will take him some more time to learn to speak. He remembers that he was a man used to be eloquent in speaking. He was able to seduce any woman in 10 minutes. Errol hears footsteps. That sound is Kania, who had come to play with him. But Errol hides from her. Kania starts looking all around for him until she finally catches a glimpse of his feet behind that curtain. She assumes that Errol wanted to play hide and seek, but that was not the case. Anyway, Kania wants to go play with Errol in a bigger place, so she takes him with her. After Fenelia's visit to Lavanna, Kania's visits became more and more frequent. Errol is sure, and this is because of what Chena said, but he thinks it also means that his mother and Fenelia have become closer. Kania tells Errol to be honest with her and asks him if she's the best. Since Errol is very young, she always comes to play with him and take care of him. In return, when he is older, Kania tells him that he must come when she asks him to. Kania tells Errol that he is the best. On the other hand, Lionel is bad and it is not fun to play with Meryl, but she thinks that Errol and her get along very well. But Errol is not sure. He doesn't think they will continue playing together when they are older. Kania holds Errol very tight to the point of not letting him breathe. Then, this woman tells her that if she holds Errol that way, she will hurt him. She offers to help. Errol is very young, so they must be careful. This is a relief for Errol. Kania's maid arrived at the perfect time. Kania wants to play some more, so her maid tells her that they should get into painting or playing an instrument. For Kania, that is boring, so she looks for something else to do. Next, she takes this stick and tells her maid that she wants to learn how to use a sword. Errol analyzes her. There is no change in her center of gravity and her body balance is good, so he recognizes that she has some potential. Kania wants to learn swordsmanship to use it and take down knights with it, but the maid refuses immediately. Kania gets angry as her brothers Kyle and Lionel do it, but the maid tells her that there is no reason for Kania to learn swordsmanship. She clarifies that no matter how persistent she is, she should learn literature and culture, but while the maid was talking, Kania had stolen the sword and runs away from her. Kania is determined to learn swordsmanship. The maid chases after her and tells her to at least do it with a holster. Errol was beginning to like Kania. Time has passed even more. Errol is already 5 years old, and it is possible that he is not doing anything. He rides a fake horse when the others ride real horses. Sheena asks him if he does not want to ride a real one, but he refuses and says it is too dangerous. Sheena mentions that at that age, Errol should already have interest in riding and playing with the sword, but Errol replies that she should throw away that old one that princes should ride horses. Yes, he called her old-fashioned. After Errol repeated his life over 100 times, he has discovered something. Exceptional talent will bring misfortune. When his talent with the sword excelled, all kinds of swordsmen came to challenge him. When he excelled with magic, he had to fight against those who wanted to destroy him. He was always at the center of trouble because of the skills he had accumulated in his previous lives. He has so far had a couple of problems in the palace, but he knows that what he does from now on is important. Later, Sheena talks to him. He tries to calm down. Sheena asks him if he hates studying. His answer is yes, but she mentions that he is already 5 years old, and it is time to experience some things and expand his knowledge. But Errol is not curious about that wide world. He doesn't want to know anything. She tells him that he sounds like someone who has lived many lives. Errol is alert because without knowing it, she got it right. Errol tells her that it is not her fault. Sheena mentions that according to the royal law, Errol must start his studies at the age of 5. Sheena has already taken care of selecting the basic books. He takes a couple of books and starts to turn them. Sheena tells him that kids from ordinary families wish they could read, but they don't even have books. They want to learn, but they can't. This while Errol is building a house with the books. Sheena asks him to treat those books with respect, then tells him to go back to his seat. Errol, assuming Sheena won't listen to him, decides to pout and cry, at which point Lavanna enters the room. This made Errol stop his strike. Later on, he knows his mother wants him to learn, but ironically, the more he tries, the more he endangers the people around him. The more the concubine's royal-blooded son stands out, the sooner someone will want to kill him. Shanna tells Errol that if he studies hard and receives praise, everyone will be happy. But this is too presumptuous for Errol. Shanna asks him to stop saying such things, because if he goes on like that, Levana will be very sad. So Errol thinks he should try a bit harder for her. So if he will study, except swordsmanship, he doesn't want to die for his sword. Neither does magic, and only attracts envy and jealousy. So the most appropriate thing for his future should be to study. A few days later, Errol is visited by a wizard from the magic tower. He has come to measure Errol's mana. If he does well, he will learn things related to magic. But Errol has no intention of becoming a wizard. A wizard will definitely feel the mana around him. He will live at the huge amount of mana Errol has, which compares to the strongest wizard alive. So he must find a way to hide his mana. On the way to see the wizard, Shanna tells Errol that it doesn't matter if he has little mana, he will slowly develop it. What she doesn't know is that Errol's mana is huge. As he goes through the door and arrives at the wizard, his first impression is one of surprise. Errol can see the mana flowing all over the mage's body, but wonders how he will look in the mage's eyes. The mage approaches Errol and is surprised, although he doesn't know if he should call it special or rare. But he can't detect any mana in Errol's body. Shanna shouts that this is impossible. The magician clarifies that he tried to use his mana to read the prince's veins, but he didn't count on that Errol's plan was a success. He managed to control the QE circulation while breathing on his way to the room. That way, the mana was condensed, then he sent that mana to the peripheral nerves. He was relieved to see the magician's surprised face. It doesn't make sense not to see any kind of mana in the royal lineage. The wizard tells Levana that Errol has no ability to use mana. She doesn't know what he is talking about, but Errol has completely fooled the wizard, who was looking in the veins of his body. He has no idea. The wizard tells Levana that he is able to detect a small amount of mana even in ordinary people, but Errol has none. Levana is a little sad to see that her son may not become a wizard. Errol is sorry, but he has no choice. He needs everyone to believe that he is an incompetent boy, incapable of using mana. Errol uses his acting skills to apologize to his mother, while thinking that this is just the beginning of an incompetent son. And it is because of all this that Errol will now receive swordsmanship training from this guy, Lanfil Tadgerin. He tells Errol that if he trains, he can become as strong as him. But Lanfil is a young knight who will be 25, and he is weak, very weak. An ordinary knight like him does not attract Errol's attention. He has fought against all kinds of monsters and has been in all kinds of battles. That Lanfil is not even a shadow of what Errol used to be, yet he surprisingly agrees to train with him. But this is for Lanfil to become stronger, not him, yet Errol doesn't want to do anything complicated. He has heard that Kenya has to use weights to train her strength. Lanfil tells him that this is normal training for the Kenchester family. To Errol, it sounds like they are a family of martial artists. Lanfil explains to Errol that in swordsmanship, not only strength is important, but also flexibility and balance. Then he tells Errol that they will start with basic training to improve balance and concentration. The balance test begins. Errol feels that he will fall. Even though he is very low, the balance failed. He says that he is afraid of heights. Next is flexibility. Lanfil tells Errol that since he is young, he will surely have no problems. But flexibility has also failed. Next, it is time to try the wooden sword. Lanfil tells him to use centrifugal force to transfer power to the tip of the sword, but holding the back is failed as well. Lanfil is surprised to see that Errol is bad at everything. Lanfil comforts him and tells him that it is his first time. He clarifies that he will get better by training. While they were still training, Errol notices the presence of someone watching. After that, the rumors spread quickly. People already knew that Errol has less mana than common people, and that he has failed in all aspects of martial arts. Iliad's glad to hear this. As for her, such rumors were a form of entertainment, but Errol had been put in a difficult situation. He was assigned a private tutor. Shanna tells him that he will be here soon. As the rumors were very strong, everyone refused to tutor Errol, but Errol is surprised that there is someone brave enough to teach him. Moments later, that person arrives. His name is Gamal Pernea, and he will be Errol's private tutor from now on. Errol looks at him disappointed, thinking that they should start with language and foreign language, and so it is. The first thing is the everyday language in the kingdom. Gamal explains to Errol that normally it only takes a day to learn the basics in grammar, but he tells Errol that it can take a day or maybe two. He clarifies that if he can't even do it, it will be fine. Errol thinks, what the hell? Gamal tells Errol that his horrible grades are obvious proof. However, studying is not a matter of interest, but one of brains, so it's not Errol's fault. He basically called him a moron. No matter how incompetent the rumors say Errol is, he doesn't feel good when he is openly belittled in that way. Who does this tutor think he is? Errol might be able to speak early, and he considers himself the best when it comes to languages and texts, thanks to his 100 reincarnations. So now he thinks to scare them all with his wit. He starts to use his mana to find vocabulary books, also grammar books. Also, he will take that opportunity to look at books from other countries as well. I imagine he also reads them with the power of mana. There are many texts in the world, but there is one rule in common between them all. It is not as if Errol has lived his 100 lives doing nothing the next morning. He tells Gamble that he has mastered the common language. Gamble tells him to stop joking. Errol tells him that he is not lying. Compared to the characters of other neighboring countries, the difficulty of the official language of the kingdom was quite high. Gamble tells Errol to choose a different book and read it. No matter how smart you are, you must be at least 12 years old to read a simple book. So for a 5-year-old to have mastered the common language in just 2 days, Gamble is astonished to see Errol, but he is very happy for him. Because when a student succeeds, the reputation of his teacher also increases. Gamble sits next to Errol to continue with the class. He should feel honored to have a student like Errol. Just like the previous rumors, people were starting to talk about how Errol managed to master the common language in 2 days when it was said that he couldn't even hold a wooden sword properly. People say they even heard that he solved basic mathematical formulas instantly after calculating them in his mind. News of the new genius Errol was spreading fast among the nobles. The source of the rumor was Gamel. He says he saw some potential in Errol, as everyone has a hidden talent. He was a drunken teacher who bragged to the nobles about his excellent student. The news about Errol reached King Thirl's ears. He tells Lavanna that whether by swordsmanship or magic, that child must have had difficulties being forced to do things unsuitable for him. Lavanna apologizes for worrying him, but at the same time thinks that Errol has always been a special child. Perhaps she should have noticed it earlier as his mother. Thirl tells Lavanna that Errol will grow up to be a splendid person. Errol, using his mana, saw all this. He is willing to do just enough to keep his father interested in him, then acquire a proper position and enjoy himself. This is his school genius cosplay. A few days later, Errol notices that the guards were reinforced. This because since they think he can't use swords or magic, he needs more troops to protect him. While fantasizing, Errol notices a sound. Shenna was carrying a very heavy chest. It is a gift that the king has given Errol. He is surprised. Lavanna tells him to open it quickly. When he opens it, Errol is even more surprised because inside there was a lot of jewelry and gold coins. Errol is struck by this necklace because it seems to him the most extraordinary. Wearing it will automatically activate his brain. Wearing it will accelerate his thoughts and make him less tired. Shenna recognizes that Errol has learned a lot after having studied so hard. Maybe this looks like an ordinary necklace for an ordinary person, but Errol is able to see the mana-activating device inside the jewel, but he has no use for it with his internal key. He thinks what he should do with it. He thinks about giving the necklace to Kenya, since she only trains her body for swordsmanship. Lavanna then asks Errol what he likes about Kenya. He answers that she is very strong. That day, everybody in the concubine castle was happy with the fact that Prince Errol is favored and recognized by the king. Lanfel tells them all that they should remember that they are knights of the concubine castle, and they should be proud of it. Later, Errol tells Sheena that he wanted some dessert, so he prepared some desserts for him. Errol ate one after another, but he noticed that all those desserts lacked sugar. Sheena tells him that those are desserts made by the best chef and mentions to Errol that he could call them, but he tells her not to call the chef, but an alchemist. Errol wants to drink some Coke, and if he wants to recreate the taste of Coke, he needs an alchemist. Shenna doesn't quite understand and asks Errol why he needs an alchemist. He thinks she wouldn't understand even if he explained it to her, and there is no way they would listen if a 5-year-old suddenly says he needs an alchemist. Currently, it is difficult to produce strong flavor with the condiments and ingredients spread across the realm. Particularly, Coke requires secondary and tertiary processing, but the problem is that there is no technology available there. Errol really wants a cold, sweet, bubbly glass of Coke. Anyway, he has chosen the concept of school genius, so he wonders if he should do something for himself while he is at it. Errol gets up and runs off to study. Yes, to study. Shenna has not misheard. Since cooking is chemistry, Errol just needs to look for an answer in alchemy. He will try to recreate Coke no matter what. 3 years later, when Errol is 8 years old, they are in a meeting where they are talking about building new bridges in commercial areas. Next, they ask Errol what he thinks about it. Errol was checking the plans and he thinks it's great. Next, he asks who designed that bridge. This happy guy answers that he supervised day and night to design it, but Errol tells him that if he brings him a useless thing like that one more time, he will fire him. Checking the plan in detail, even if it looks good now, it will be dangerous when the snow accumulates in the winter. The load will be concentrated on the wooden part below, but the guy didn't consider safety because he only focused on an ostentatious appearance. Errol says that updating the beauty and elegance in the architecture of the kingdom is fine, but safety is the priority, so he asks him to redesign the bridge. With Errol's vast knowledge and his intelligence, his workload exploded. All those people who call themselves experts and veterans in his areas can't even compare with him. Still, it's hard to think that they trust so much to an 8-year-old boy. Errol feels pity. but he can't help it, as he needs to show his skills. Later, this maid notices Errol's presence. There we realize that Errol is nicknamed the Young Grey Sage. He finds it a shameful nickname. Anyway, this girl is the new maid, and she was surprised to see Errol for the first time. He makes it clear to her that he doesn't like that nickname at all, so she tells him not to call them that way again. But it seems that all the people call him by that nickname. What a pitiful nickname. Lavanna notices that Errol is leaving. Shinna tells her that it is because Errol asked the king for an audience. Lavanna asks Shinna for what reason Errol wants to see the king. Later we see that Errol imagines himself expressing to the king his desire to learn alchemy. He wonders how the king would react if he told him that, since the request for his audience was granted immediately. He assumes that he has gained the king's trust, and no wonder. He has been working hard in several areas in the meantime. Even after reincarnating several times, Errol always gets nervous in front of the king's charisma. Errol knows that in order not to make mistakes, he must keep calm and talk to him. Later, Thyril asks Errol why he wants to learn alchemy. He replies that he wants to be of more help to him and the kingdom. Besides, as Errol is not good with the sword or magic, all he can do is accumulate knowledge and use it. What a little liar, you just get lazy using magic and the sword. Thyril notes that although Errol is young, his seriousness is not like that at all. Moments later, he tells him to introduce him to some trustworthy alchemists. Errol is happy because it worked. The best alchemists in the kingdom gathered with the news that Prince Errol is looking for an alchemy teacher. It was a chance for them to demonstrate their alchemy and gain merit. Among them, a guy named Damon Ranjit, a practical alchemist, who created the reflective mirrors that transmit strong light from far away and installed them on the western outskirts of the fortress to block the invaders, was selected. Errol sees him for the first time. He thought Damon was an older alchemist after looking at his back, but he is someone quite young. Damon mentions that he accidentally inhaled toxic smoke a long time ago, then his hair turned white as a result of that. Basically what he said is that he almost died learning alchemy. So even though he was speaking calmly, he was warning Errol that he needed to be prepared. Although if Errol gets hurt or dies doing experiments alongside him, Damon will have to take responsibility with his life. Damon warns Errol that learning alchemy is much more difficult and dangerous than he thinks, but Errol replies that he is aware of how dangerous it is. Alchemy is science, not magic. Errol clarifies that he does not want to turn lead into gold like those delusional people. What he wants is pure technology that allows him to remove impurities in iron ores to develop it into a stronger metal. Damon is surprised and happy to hear this. It is just as he had heard. Errol's intelligence and charisma were enormous. He even thinks that he will be the monarch to lead the kingdom of Vernesia. Damon tells Errol that he may not be up to it, but he will make sure to do his best to teach him alchemy. A few days passed since the alchemy class started. Damon asks Errol if he has learned about alchemy before. Errol was careless, as it looked like he knew a lot, so he tries to evade the question by telling him that he heard about alchemy in books. Damon tells him that he is just like the rumors said. Errol is relieved that he chose the concept of genius school. What Errol has learned the most is the method of lead extraction and the properties of other substances, except for the metals and medicines that only exist there. Everything else is almost identical to what Errol knew from his previous lives. Fortunately, the rules don't seem to be any different there. Damon overhears this, but Errol tells him he was just talking to himself. But anyway, Errol can proceed just as he planned. Later on, we see a knight going fast on a horse. He goes straight to deliver a letter from Errol to King Thyril. The letter says that Errol needs 4 more alchemists, so the king orders to find the best alchemists in the kingdom. This guy wonders what Errol will do, as he is worried that people are going to complain about how much of the kingdom's budget will be allocated to that. At that moment, Thyril remembers Errol's words when he told him that he wants to be of more help to him and the kingdom. So Thyril tells this guy that he should not worry, as Errol will do research for the benefit of the kingdom. Yeah, right, because later on, Errol reveals that he wants to make a carbonated drink. People are surprised. Errol has proposed some basic theories. The people around are a bit disappointed. This guy came all the way there to bring honor to his family name. But now it happens that Errol wants them to prepare snacks, while this other one even gave up his position as a full professor at the Alchemy Academy to come here. Errol tells them that they should not worry. He will reward them generously, no matter it is failure or success. So in that case, people's expression changes after hearing what Errol said. They think the first thing they need is carbonated water. There are some territories in the kingdom that have natural veins of carbonated water. They can transport it quickly. Errol knows that sincerity doesn't matter with those people. It's because those people will be satisfied as long as they get enough money or fame. The important thing is that he can use them to speed up his research. The barrels of carbonated water from each territory arrived one after another a few days later. Errol was happy to see that the whole shipment had arrived. But do they really have to drink that? That water doesn't look very appetizing, but they can't drink it like that. They have to check if they can drink it. Looking at it, Errol immediately realizes that that barrel of carbonated water is no good. There is no way they will drink that, a real failure. This means it looks like they will need to make artificial carbonated water. People are surprised because they don't know how they will do it, but Errol tells them it will be easy if they get an idea based on the theories he gave them. Errol is confident that his best alchemists can do it. Damon confirms it. They are the best alchemists in the kingdom of Reincarnated. For alchemists, it is a pleasure to test theories and put them into practice, so Errol won't take up any more of their time and leaves. Errol wonders if they will be able to make it in a week. Having provoked them, they are likely to do it faster. A few days later, Errol, meeting with everyone, promises the alchemists that what they have done will definitely bring vitality to the kingdom of Reincarnated. The carbonated water was ready, and the popularity of it will bring massive fortune to the kingdom. Errol never thought they would be able to make artificial carbonated water so fast. Next, Damon asks if this water will really become popular, while this other alchemist warns that the taste of the water is not that good. But Errol knows that they won't drink it like that. They will mix it with fruit juice or alcohol before drinking it. His original goal is to recreate Coke, but he couldn't help but get his hands on the fruity Coke. So he started with the fruity carbonated soda instead of Coke. Not a bad alternative. Errol will start with the lemon juice. After tasting it, he becomes extremely excited at how good it is, then gives it to the others to taste somewhat hesitantly. The alchemists take a sip, but moments later, they succumb to the taste of the drink, Prince Errol's carbonated soda. The popularity of this spread far beyond the kingdom of Reincarnated. It quickly became a luxury item traded among the nobles. This guy wonders if it was really Prince Errol who developed this drink. This fellow is the Lord of the Northern Territory, Count Demont. This old man confirms to him that such a drink, if produced under Errol's leadership, it has gained a popularity as an expensive luxury item. It also contributes a great deal to the economy of Reincarnated. Rumor has it that a cart loaded with gold comes and goes to the concubine palace every day. Demont feels guilty, as there was a time when he judged Errol to be useless. He didn't expect it to turn into something like this. Had he known, he would have intervened, so Demont decides to pay attention from now on. We return to Kenya, who's now 16. She's in her training. She's doing quite well, and the 10-year-old Errol thinks she's great. Kenya's maid tells her that her basic swordsmanship is beyond reproach, and Errol agrees. In fact, he thinks she's better than the boys his age. Moments later, they take a break, and Kenya tells Errol that she has heard a lot about him the last few days. She already knows about the development of carbonated drinks, and that it not only contributed to the situation in the palace, but also to the funds of all of Reincarnated. She has also heard that Errol is a perfect son, and that people envy Levana. This is not just a simple story about soda production. Levana's family, the Ainres, is a fallen noble family. In the meantime, they manage a small territory and manage to live like commoners. After learning about his mother's circumstances, Errol entrusted the distribution of soda to the Ainres family, and the results were incredible. People wanted to buy all the sodas, offering lots of money. After that, the funds of the Ainres family became so rich that no market in this kingdom could match them. Kenya tells Errol to go easy, as she is still being compared to him. Errol tells Kenya to drink soda with waffles topped with Iril syrup, as he boasts of having a lot of money. But Kenya points her sword at him and asks him what's the point of having a lot of money if he can't exercise or do swordsmanship. That's why Kenya wants to teach Errol, but he thanks her and refuses. He doesn't need swordsmanship anymore, but Kenya didn't care and attacked him anyway. In the end, it didn't work out well. Kenya started to train Errol. He can feel Kenya's dream and goal, the desire to form a swordsmanship master family by herself. That kind of dream must have turned a fragile girl into someone full of energy. Errol decides to pour out his energy little by little for Kenya. While they practice swordsmanship, the servant girl watched them both train. Later on, Errol goes by carriage and draws a lot of attention. Maybe it's because that carriage is like a Lamborghini there. He even has an escort. He feels like becoming an idol. Everything is fine. But Errol wonders what the king wants to talk to him about this time. He thinks about the possibility of being allowed more things as a reward for his achievements. When he came to see Thiril, Errol mentions that he used to get nervous because of the awkward silences, but he has got used to it. He will take the opportunity to enjoy the snacks. The reason why he has got used to it is because he has recently come here often to make various reports. Thiril asks Errol if he has thought about taking a fully stable job in the government. Errol chokes up. He thinks the time has finally come. Thiril mentions that it might be a bit early, but now, if Errol takes a government job, no one will object, so he asks him if there is any job he wants, but Errol has none. He just wants to play and eat in that life. After drinking some tea, he decides to calm down. Errol tells the king that he still likes to learn science and alchemy. The first prince is not even in the government, and yet Thiril wants Errol to go there. For now, there is no movement from the side of the queen and the first prince. Errol thinks there is a big difference between being wanted by the king and being trusted for a higher position in the government. Errol hates to get into gossip and fight with his brothers, so he thinks about the possibility that the king is trying to create a conflict between brothers on purpose. Nature is not the only place with the laws of the jungle. Being on the throne means being strong like an eagle. If you are weak, you won't be able to survive even with 100 past lives, so Errol thinks that the king wants something like that where only the strongest survive. In that case, Errol doesn't care because he won't be someone easy to beat. Errol, for the first time, is far away from the concubine palace. He can feel the air on his face is freedom. He has been working hard all this time. He never thought he would become a workaholic at home. Once he traveled all over the world looking for someone stronger, he was starting to feel sore, but this is his first time they're enjoying such speed on top of a horse. But he's not alone. Kenya is accompanying him, and the journey is thanks to her still. Errol asks why they have so many horses escorting them on such a short journey. Everything indicated that they were being escorted by the strongest. Kenya says that they didn't really need that number of troops, but it's normal. She's already a princess. Errol wishes he had more freedom, but Kenya's safety comes first. Moments later, Errol tells Kenya to wait because he starts to feel magical energy coming from the forest. Immediately, Errol tells Kenya to turn around and leave as there are probably monsters in the forest. She asks him how he knows. He replies that he has a good sixth sense. He has a bad feeling. Errol tries to talk some sense into them as the task is to get the princess back to safety. This guy tells Errol that this is the right way to go as beyond the forest is the princess's training area. Training camp? Correct. Having said that, everyone moves on. Next, we go to a flashback where Kenya was inviting Errol to go on a trip. As it must be frustrating to always work and be stuck in the palace, Kenya likes to hunt and have adventures. We come back. Errol thinks this is torture, but for Kenya, traveling is practice and practice is travel. Besides, she knew Errol would have agreed to come even if he knew it was practice. She tells him not to worry as she will protect him from the monsters. Errol thinks Kenya has something really cool about her. Finally, they arrive. The operation is as follows. Some troops will lure the monsters aside. Kenya will pass while the troops deal with the monsters that were lured, using time and energy efficiently. They will maximize the princess's skill. Firstly, some soldiers encounter 20 orcs. Kenya goes immediately to defeat them one after another. Errol is surprised as he thought it was impossible for Kenya to fight an orc in her first practice. But she is really strong, not only her skill with the sword, but also her calmness. The courage and spirit that emanates from her whole body was enough to hit the whole troop. The practice continued for several days. At night, Errol asks Kenya if she is not tired. She is fine, but she wanted to fight a little more. Errol tells her that it is not good to overdo it because mistakes are made when you are distracted. He used to be like that too, and that mistake cost him one of his lives. Errol watched happily as Kenya smiled like a real 16-year-old girl. Moments later, Errol asks Kenya why she wants to be so strong. She answers that being a princess, no matter how much she uses her sword, no one will be really happy with that, and they would think that maybe she is only interested in using the sword now and will give up soon. She fears one day marrying someone she does not know, as political marriage is a normal thing in the aristocratic society. Errol knows well that Kenya is old enough to be engaged to someone for political reasons. Kenya hates that kind of life. She wants to live like Errol. He makes a lot of money doing something he is good at. He helps the kingdom and is recognized. Kenya wants to be recognized for the person she is and what she is good at. She wants to contribute to the Kenchester family with her skills. Not with her marriage, she wants to decide her own destiny. Errol smiles and tells her that he is sure she will be able to change her destiny. They will be back from training tomorrow. Errol mentions that it was a great trip and that he is glad he came. However, we see that there is a huge creature flying over the area. The next morning while they are going back, Kenya continued hunting the ogres. No one can stop her. She even chased the hidden orcs. Then Errol tells her that it is time to stop as they must hurry to arrive on time. She has no choice but to accept. Anyway, there were no more orcs to hunt, so she decides to leave. Although her horse looks strange, even though he is not hurt, he looks quite tired. It is difficult to move with that horse now. So Errol proposes her to go together on his horse. This girl will take Kenya's horse with the wizards behind. Kenya asks Errol to lead the horse herself. He agrees since after all she is better than him. They are all on their way back, but soon after, Errol notices something above them. There is something else. Even though he can't see it, he is able to feel it. There is definitely something above that cloud. Errol is alerted. Soon after, the silhouette of a huge wyvern can be seen. Errol asks Kenya to hold on to it. Next, Errol orders everyone to run quickly into the woods as there is a wyvern lurking. The troops refuse as they don't see the monster and clarify that there is a reason why they chose this place as a training site. The Lord is supposed to hunt wyvern there regularly, and he had confirmed that there were none there. Well, that's what he thought, because the wyvern gets its claws on this guy and takes him away. They all start running. In fact, there is not just one wyvern, there are many of them. Kenya wonders what they will do. Errol is confused as wyverns are usually solitary, but these come in groups. The wyverns attack the troops. This looks like a massacre. Besides, it has acid breath. Normal wyvern attacks are already crushing. Errol wonders why on earth they are using such a powerful poison. There are many guards down. Errol asks Kenya not to look back and hold on tight. A wyvern was going for them, but the mage unit joins the battle to slow them down. Earl knows they can't just keep running like that. Wyverns are resistant to magic less than class 4. As time goes on, the mages will inevitably be at a disadvantage. Earl is clearly in a desperate situation, so he will turn his mana energy into a bullet. This technique is called Danji Gong. Earl manages to hit one right in the face. He manages to hit a couple of them and knock them down. To divert attention, he tells the mage that he's doing a good job. Further on, another wyvern gets in front of them both. Kania was very afraid, but fortunately, her servant was there to cut the wyvern in two. She tells them both that they must flee immediately. They must run towards the woods. Earl had thought about it before, but this lady's abilities are no joke, so be sure she'll buy them some time. Then someone else appears. It's this guy in a robe with a stick, which Earl notices is too weird. This guy gives off a purple aura. Earl asks him for his identity. The guy gives no answer, but to use his powers to attack Earl. This guy has attacked all the troops, managing to wound many. Earl watched in despair as his comrades fell. This guy tells Kania that she was lucky to manage to dodge the attack. So this guy definitely knows Kania. He was aiming at her from the beginning. Bro has no eyebrows. This guy says that so far it has been nothing but a game and prepares for another attack that he will make sure they cannot escape from. Earl notices the dark energy emitted by this guy. The guy raises his staff, emitting dark energy, which makes the corpses around him start to move and attack the others. This guy gives the order to the corpses to kill Kania. This to show the arrogant royal family the power of the Dark Church. But not so fast, Baldy, because Errol is there and he's not going to let them attack his sister. Errol uses his mana to attack the guy, managing to finish him off by running him through 3 times. Kania doesn't understand what has happened. Errol doesn't want to reveal his secret, so he tells her that the guy died from the side effect of trying to use more magic than he could control. But even though the bald guy is dead, the corpses keep attacking, so Kania has to run away. Errol mentions that the bald guy's control spell will last a few more minutes. Errol tells Kania that they should get out of there, and that he will. Errol leaves the rest to the troops. Later, night falls and they manage to escape deep into the forest, but they wonder if their companions will be Uck. They should, as since the bald guy died, the undead shouldn't last long, so if that's the case, they will most likely go looking for both of them soon. For now, Errol tries to make fire for the cold of the night. Kania is surprised as she thought that Errol worked all the time in the concubine's castle. She asks him where he learned to light the fire that way. He answers that he read it in a book. He must rub the sticks to generate heat. Errol thought to gather mana and turn it into energy to light the fire immediately. Kania feels guilty and says that it would have been better not to come to the training, but Errol tells her that this situation is no different than an unexpected accident. He clarifies that it is not her fault. Kania asks Errol if he was scared. Errol realizes that he has been acting too mature, so he uses his acting skills to fake some fear. Kania takes Errol's hand and thanks him, telling him that it would have been an even more terrible day if he hadn't been by her side. Errol hadn't realized, but Kania is very scared. She seemed to be heartbroken by the fact that the people escorting her lost their lives in vain. Members of the royal family are always at risk of being killed, but this is the first time Kania has experienced this danger, so it must be difficult for her to just accept that. Kania leans on Errol's shoulder. Errol is very clear about something. They must focus on getting back safely. Moments later, they both realize that there is a wyvern fighting against a griffin. The reason for the fight between them is that there is a nest in the cliff. The wyvern is trying to go after the griffin's offspring. The wyvern has the advantage over the griffin and hits it until it falls to the ground with a lot of debris that ended up falling on top of it. After this, the wyvern leaves, fortunately for them. But Errol notices that Kania is not there. She immediately goes to approach the griffin, which seems to be dead. She wonders what they should do with the griffin. Errol thinks that she is thinking of making a grave for it or something, and that seems regrettable to her. But Kania is referring to the griffin's calf. The poor animal tried to protect its calf in its last moments. Yes, Kania has the griffin's calf in her arms. Errol says there is only one option and thinks that although it sounds cruel, they have to let nature take its course. But Kania wants to raise the griffin. Moments later, they arrive to rescue them both. Luckily, they have found them. She reports that after the undead spell dissipated, they didn't lose anyone else. But she is surprised to see that Kania has a little griffin in her arms. Errol tells the maid to do something to stop Kania from raising the griffin, but she doesn't think they can do that. A week later, everything is back to normal. If anything has changed, they now have a new addition to the family, a baby griffin called Fly. Errol can't sleep with Fly on him, but he lets it go as he is quite cute and is a good boy. We go to a flashback of that moment where Errol orders to take Kania home to rest. He would clean the area so that other wild beasts don't mess with the griffin's corpse. When everyone turns around, Errol does what he has to do. He cut open the mother griffin's chest and pulled out the magic core that was lying inside. With that, he could tame Fly back to the present. Kania excitedly goes to see Fly. They both get along very well, but leaving that aside, a kingdom-wide search warrant has been issued for the Dark Church. The group that attacked Kania in the forest, they could also put out a reward for anyone who can provide information, so they should get something soon. Arel mentions that this is not the only group that opposes the kingdom. Arel thinks that maybe he is too obsessed with material wealth. Next, he asks this guy to leave. Arel did not think they would attack Kania, as she does not even have great influence. But even though she is not in the center of power, she is still a princess. So from now on, Arel must be prepared. Since Kania is Arel's family, Arel plans to become a sword master, and that will be his next goal. To become an aura expert by the age of 20, Arel approaches Kania and proposes something fun, training with the sword. This time, Arel let himself go a bit more. Even Kania is surprised and finds it amazing. Since Arel has pushed her back, Arel mentions that he has used the aura while thinking that everything went as he expected. Kania took the bait, because now she'll want to learn how to do that. Arel tells Kania that when using aura, the most important thing is the brain. She misunderstands and thinks that you can't use aura if you are not smart, but he tells her that she shouldn't worry as he has got it. But Kania mentions that that is because he is a genius. Arel tells her that all she has to do is learn how to control the aura with the brain, and he will teach her how to do so. She wonders if she will be able to learn it quickly. Arel tells her that if she follows his method, he promises her that it won't take long, but there is another reason why Kania will be able to learn it quickly, and that is because Arel has been secretly transferring his mana to her via Bluetooth, I guess, that said. Arel asks Kania to follow him and concentrate. They train in an authorized staff room. Whenever Kania went to see Fly, she trained with Arel both her swordsmanship and aura. As a result, Kania became an aura user at an incredible speed. She finally starts to see the aura flowing from her sword. She is happy. Arel tells her that this is just the beginning. Besides, Fly also likes it. How huge he looks. Fly has grown temporarily after being exposed to the large amount of energy caused by the aura training. Even if he gets smaller again, he's already quite heavy anyway. Arel clarifies that this is only the first step. They have to train harder from now on. The more mana Kania has, the better she can control the strength and movement of her aura. Then she can use the aura as she pleases while riding Fly. Kania recognizes that Arel has a great imagination, but he's serious. Kania, that day will come soon. Moments later, they receive an unexpected visit from the king. Arel has heard that Thiril was busy with the preparation in the north, so if he is there, it won't be to rest a little. Thiril has already heard that Arel is lately dedicated to swordsmanship, but he answers that only a little. Besides that, Arel mentions that he is working on several experiments. He is also trying to tame the griffin to be able to use it later in the defense of the borders. Thiril lets out an expression of great satisfaction. Arel is not surprised. Thiril should not expect less since Arel has excelled and achieved good results in several fields. Thiril didn't come empty-handed. He gives this to Arel, then tells him to try to take it. It's a unique sword in the whole world made specifically for Arel. Lavanna mentions that Arel is still too young to wield a sword, but Thiril didn't bring the sword because he wants Arel to wield it, but at least he expects Arel to take it. Arel is surprised and lifts his new sword. This encourages him to practice his sword skills even more from now on. Thiril is happy to think that his son was a child with no talent for martial arts, and now he is happy with a sword, but moments later, Arel falls under the weight of the sword. If Arel is sure of anything, it is that he does not want to die by his sword. In his current life, he has excelled in many aspects. If he masters swordsmanship, it will be annoying as he will be able to get involved in the power struggle. Arel did his best as a weak little brother while training. That's why he can't spoil all his efforts. And more importantly, he needs to think to what extent he can get involved. Arel thanks the king for the gift. He clarifies that, however, his sword skills are at the level of a child. He apologizes and says that sword would fit Kania better. She is immediately surprised, but she shouldn't be, as she's growing at an incredible speed and is in the class of an aura practitioner. That should be enough to be treated as an elite in the kingdom. But in the eyes of a past life practitioner like Arel, Kania still has a long way to go. But at that rate, it's only a matter of time before Kania reaches the expert class, where there are only 30 people in the kingdom. Even the knights would be surprised. They won't know how Kania has become so strong. Arel hands the sword to Kania. Thiril understands what Arel means, but he has a condition. Kania must show him the skills worthy of being worthy of that sword. Both Arel and Kania are surprised. What the hell is the king saying all of a sudden? But then Arel remembers that Thiril is completely male. But anyway, imagining him wielding the sword is a bit weird. Thiril tells Kania to show him her skills. All she has to do is attack without worrying. Arel notices Kania's nerves, but it's a normal reaction. Arel tells Kania to take that opportunity. While in his head, he wants Kania to beat Thiril to exhaustion. The fight between these two is about to begin. The king notices that Kania's posture is different from the current knights. Kania attacks the king, demonstrating her innate strength and her high-powered mana. She has reached a speed that is invisible to the eyes of the common people. Arel is cheering her on, but he doesn't find it normal that her first attack is to the head and more so with a real sword. Besides, Thiril looks on with a smile. That pair of father and daughter is really terrifying. Thiril manages to block Kanya's attack at the last moment without any problems. He acknowledges that Kanya's attack was quite strong. He says that not even the leader of the Knights could pull out so much aura when facing a duel with him. Despite this, Kanya knows that she still has a long way to go. Thiril has heard that it was Errol who taught Kanya how to use the sword. Errol doesn't have much to say. He only says that his theory turned out to be correct. He explains that according to the result of his research, the swordsmanship that Kanya had didn't fit her. But as she seemed to have talent with aura, he only gave her a little advice. In that case, Thiril realizes that it should be possible to teach that method to others. Errol realizes that this is the real reason why the king visited him. The king must want to create an invincible army of aura users that no other country can match. But Errol says that this will be difficult if he expects the same results from Kanya and other people. Errol clarifies that she was born with great potential, and since they have grown up together, and since they were little, the bond between them has strengthened. So it was easy for Errol to remember her every move. In short, Errol refuses. Not that he would be so crazy to see sweaty muscles all day. Even so, Errol proposes to teach only members of the royal family. Thiril agrees and says that he will only pass the secret method to the royal lineage. Errol didn't expect that his training method would become something that would be passed down from generation to generation in the royal family. Although he feels a bit sorry for them because they are the ones who have to train hard, a few months later we see that Thiril has been training using the secret method, and it is working. He is finally reaching the level of an expert. He believes that Errol can't use the method because his body is weak, so he thinks he needs to do something to get Errol to train. So he tells Errol about an exclusive night. And that's how the first part of this manhwa ends. Well guys, if you like this video and you want a second part, comment below with the word part 2. Also subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and like the video. But most important, leave a comment. Until the next video,